these are all your hand plows, or?
Yeah, these are all walking plows.
What different types do you have?
Well, I've got a P&O, and I've got an Oliver, and I've got a Vulcan. I think that's all. That's all the different kinds I've got up here.
So have you used all of these over the years at one time or another?
Yeah. At one time or another, we've had them all on the ground. This one right here is my little plow for my kids. How low the hounds are.
Uh-huh.
I fixed it for those children when they come to plow.
So I know once mechanization came in and the tractors and motors and all that sort of stuff kind of supplanted the use of the horse, but you continue to use them today. Why do you like doing that? What do you enjoy about that?
Well, nostalgia is one reason, and then I like to work the horses. I like to train the horse. I love to train horses. Then I like to watch the dirt roll over when I'm plowing. I like to watch it. I think it's pretty work. I like to see how straight a fur I can make, and it's just fulfilling. I like to watch the horse work. It's quiet, it's peaceable, nothing going on. You get to talk to your horse, and it's just enjoyable work. It's accomplishment, I guess. Looking back to see what you've done, see what you get done during the day, and how it looks when you get to the field plow. There's a special sound in working horses. Not too long ago, we were watching a video of plowing, and they said, they asked me if that was rocks that was rattling on the plow, where the plow was rocks, and I said, no, it's the traces. The traces where you hook them to the single tree has a certain sound when you're working. And I've listened to that sound, and I enjoy listening to that sound. I love to listen to a mowing machine in the field of mowing. When you're mowing hay, it has a particular sound. In Timothy, it's got a different sound to what it has if you're mowing orchard grass or fescue, or if you're mowing cover crop like wheat or oats or something. It has a particular sound, and I like to hear those different sounds when I'm mowing. Hear the horses, the steadiness of the sickle speeding up and slowing down. It will get kind of like the rocking chair. They both get to walking in that speed, and that mowing machine gets to having a certain timing to it, and you get it. It feels good. I like to sit in that mowing machine seat and feel that mowing machine rock and watch that grass fall back over that moldboard, and it's just the sound I like to do. Something I enjoy doing.
How old were you when you first started working horses?
I don't really remember. I just grew up with them, and I was driving as far back as I can remember. After I got big enough to walk behind them, I guess. I was driving. I would sit on the sled of hay. We would pull hay from a neighboring farm, put it on a sled and pull it in the wintertime. And my dad, pulling uphill, you didn't load the sled as heavy, but on the snow, you could still pretty good load, and didn't wear the runners out on that snow like it would on that rough gravel road. And so he would let me, since I was small, he'd let me get them on top of the load of hay and drive the horses coming home. I grew up playing with horses, and we started in the spring of the year hauling out manure and cleaning out the barn with the horses and sleds. We didn't have a manure spreader, so we used a horse and sled to clean out the barn. And then we plowed the ground with a turning plow and turned the soil under. And I grew up doing that when I was 10 years old, before my dad ever bought a tractor, and he bought a small tractor, and we still use the horses to level up the ground, disc the ground, and drag it down with the horses. And then we planted, and and laid off the ground, and then cultivated with the horses. We'd cultivate with a 4-foot cultivator. We'd plant corn. We started making silage, and we would cultivate that corn with the horses. Still had to cultivate the whole corn 2 and 3 times. If we got it started real good and got fast growth, we could get it past. Wouldn't have to hoe it over twice. So, but we used to plow all we could, because you can plow pretty close to the corn and keep the weeds down. But then the tobacco was our money crop. We used horses to plow the tobacco, and then in the fall of the year we used the sled to haul that tobacco in put it in the barn. So the horses were used all through the crop. We used the horse to pull in wood in the wintertime. We would go cut chestnut oak or big hickory and take the horse and pull the wood in and saw it up. I can remember still using the crosscut saw to saw the logs up with. You couldn't afford to keep a horse unless you had a way to feed it, and you had to grow enough corn and enough hay and to feed that horse. And most people owned a horse. Most people owned a team. A lot of people owned a team. The people that couldn't afford a team would have one horse, and the neighbor would have one. Maybe he might have a team, but he would loan you one of his to go with yours to do your spring plowing with, and you'd have enough. Through neighbors would have enough horses in the neighborhood to get all the plowing done. It would take about all day, if it was good ground and not rocky, to plow an acre. In real good ground where you could plow and had long rows, you could plow an acre with each horse if you had big horses. But in the mountains, you probably averaged about an acre of ground a day, because most ground in this mountains, there was rocky spots in them, and it was steep, and it was harder to work on steeper ground.
Hello, I'm Tim Barnwell, and I'd like to welcome you to the Face of Appalachia, where we honor the people, vibrant culture, and strong traditions of the mountains we call home.
You want the name?
Yeah.
Janitor Franklin. I was born in 1930.
My name's John Antelope Phillips. I grew up here in Madison County.
Well, I'm John Kilpatrick. I was born and raised in this area here.
Well, I'm Sheila K. Adams, and I was born and raised in Madison County, still live here.
I am Buster Norton, and we are the Face of Appalachia.
The heart and soul of Appalachia are fading. Its stories, its traditions, its way of life. At the Face of Appalachia, we are more than just a YouTube channel. It's our mission to document, preserve, and share these traditions, stories, and culture before they are lost forever. But we can't do it without you. From music and faith to hardship and triumph, we capture the voices of Appalachian people before they fade into history. Through more than 30 episodes, we've witnessed the resilience, faith, and strength of Appalachian farmers, teachers, preachers, and families who've weathered generations of hardship. Their stories matter. Their voices deserve to be heard. Today we are asking for your help for a year of funding, which will mean more untold stories, more preserved traditions, and more history saved for future generations. Every dollar makes a difference. Please visit our GoFundMe campaign and make a contribution today. If this mission speaks to you, if you believe in the power of storytelling, please donate now. Time is running out, but together we can keep Appalachia's legacy alive.
So when you were growing up, did almost everybody have at least one horse?
Yeah, nearly all families had at least one horse. Most all your smaller families had a horse and a cow. Most of the time they liked to have 2 cows, because 2 cows, one was springing, and they have a calf, and they could rotate the calves to become at different times so they'd have fresh milk all the time. But a lot of people just had one. A lot of poor families just had one, and of course, if they did, usually the neighbors helped. That was the reason neighbors was so important back at that time. If you had good neighbors, everybody had plenty to eat. Sometimes one neighbor wouldn't have one thing, that's the milk, and then another person would have something else, you know. I can remember borrowing sugar from a neighbor. So my mama could bake a cake or something, she needed that extra sugar. She'd borrow from the neighbor, and then when we went to the grocery store, then we'd buy about a bag of sugar and take that cup of sugar back to the neighbor where we had borrowed the sugar, and they kept track of what they borrowed that sugar, because everybody didn't have everything. Didn't have any way of getting it. The grocery store, unless you walked to the store sometimes, of course the stores were pretty numerous in this community. You didn't have to walk far, but sometimes it was having that extra dollar to buy something at the store.
So would people take like a horse and sled to the store if they need a lot of stuff?
Yeah. There's a family that lived on the mountain above where I lived. Several families, and they would come down once a month or once every month and a half and go to the grocery store and come down by my house and go into the store with a sled and a mule or a horse and go get the groceries and head back up the mountain. They would buy a month's supply. They'd buy soup beans, pinto beans, and that kind of beans come in 50-pound bags, and they would buy that much at a time, and they would buy other things. Sugar, they'd buy 10, 15 pounds of sugar and their lard, a bucket of lard, sometimes 2 buckets of lard, enough to do them. If they bought lard, most of the people kept hogs and rendered their own lard, but occasionally they did need some lard or salt and things like that, and they would buy enough for a month at a time and bring their sled and bring their horse. Another thing they brought the corn to mill with their horse. They'd bring a turn of meal sometimes once a week. Bring a turn. They called it a turn, or I guess you'd take. Most of the time it was either a half a bushel of corn or a bushel of corn, and bring it to the mill. My uncle ran a mill, and they would bring that corn to the mill, and he would grind it, and he would take a toll out of that corn. He would take a gallon of corn out of that bushel, and for his toll for paying for grinding the corn, and they would get the meal back. And I've helped him grind a lot of corn with his meal.
So do you have favorite breeds of horses that you like to work?
I like the Morgan. He's a good all-around small horse. But then I like the big ones. I like the Percheron. They're a little bit faster than the Belgian, but they're all a little bit different according to what you're going to do. If you're going to be plowing and doing heavy work, the Belgian is really good because they're usually slower and stronger. But if you're going to be on the road to the wagon and do a lot of wagon work and wagon trains and things, the Percheron steps out a little more, or the Morgan with them. And I like grade horses. I have some grade horses. They're mixed between the Morgan and the Belgian, and they'll step out a little better. They walk a little faster pace. But if you're going to be plowing, you don't want a fast pace. You just want the strength. So it's according to what you're going to do. And I don't really put a lot of, I guess I don't know what you'd say, preference on breeds. Most of the good horses are made. Most bad horses are made by the owner.
When you're logging, you have halflingers. Tell me a little bit about logging with those.
Oh yeah, the Halflinger is a pony breed. He's a draft pony breed, and they're good little horses. They don't get too awful big. I can't remember exactly what the size is on them, but the two I've got is about the largest you'll see. They're about the standard size for Halflingers. And they work really good. We do everything on the farm with them. We've raked hay, and we've logged with them, like you say. We pulled the logs with them, and we've plowed with them, disc hire, and just about anything you want to do. We garden with them. We put them in the cultivator and work them in the gardens and tobacco patches. Just they're good little ponies. Most of the horses I've ever owned has been grade horses.
What does that refer to when you say grade horse?
A grade is a mixed breed. It can be Belton and Morgan crossed, or Belton and Percheron crossed, or just Percheron cross bred to a Percheron cross. But most of the horses when I was growing up wasn't any riding horses. They were just grade horses, and some of them smaller, and they used them to ride. The buggy horses were used, and they were trained to the buggy and to ride too. Horses didn't have any special job usually. Whenever a man owned a horse, he done about everything with it.
I know you prefer horses over mules. Is there a reason for that, or why people pick one versus the other? Or some people have both, I guess.
Well, I grew up with horses is one reason, but then I just like the disposition of horses, their character, better than I do mules. There's good mules. I've worked mules. Our neighbors had mules, and I've worked them, and there's advantages. Mules are stronger per pound. They're tougher. They won't hardly overeat. Some horses will eat enough to founder themselves. If they find a bag of feed, they'll just eat till they founder themselves. The mule won't hardly do that. Very seldom ever see a mule foundered. Mules are easier keepers usually. They don't eat as much hay. But that being said, there's not a whole lot of difference in working them. A horse can do about anything a mule can do, and a mule can do anything a horse can do. Mostly it's training. You know, we have arguments about which is which. Mule men like their mules, and horse people like their horses. And it's mostly like the Chevrolet and the Ford. It's according to what you got, and what you grow up with, and how you like. You know, there's things I like about horses.
So why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jessie Norton. I'm Buster Norton's wife.
And were you around horses when growing up any?
No, horses. Dad had mules, so I was used to the mules.
So what all did you use them for on your farm growing up?
And we had to use them for everything because Dad, we didn't have a tractor. We just had mules. So we used them for the sled, we used them to the mowing machine to mow hay with. He used them to turn the soil over to plow with. If we needed anything hauled, we used the sled, had to haul everything with the mules and the sled. So it was a little bit different from being here and having the horses. We have tractors, so we're more in inclination of using the tractors if we're in a hurry. And wasn't done any good growing up. We'd been in a hurry because that's all we had was the mules.
What age do you start training them?
A day old. They're learning from the start go.
So what commands do you use?
Well, there's only 4 that horses really understand plain, and if you can talk to them all you want to in that other language, and you can tell them a whole lot of stuff, but they only understand. I use a clucking sound to get them started, or come up, and then whoa, that's start and stop. That's you, and then you G and haw. G is to the right, haw is to the left, and once they learn those commands, you can hang up your lines and work. Grown horse will learn it faster, but younger horse is easier to teach because they're not as big. You can push the little horse around, but you can't push one. A grown Belgian will weigh 1,800 pounds, and a 150-pound man is not no match for that size animal. So you've just got to start when they're young, because they don't really realize how big they are, what they could. I mean, they could just push you around if you want to. So you've got to be smarter. Got to know how to handle them, because you'll get hurt. You know, a lot of people get hurt. There's a saying that horse trainers usually use. It's green on green means black and blue. That means a young trainer that don't know what he's doing gets a green horse, he might be lined up black and blue.
Did you have farriers that would come out, or did you have to do kind of a lot of your own horse maintenance and veterinary kind of stuff yourself?
We did most of it ourselves. We could shoe horses. Most of the time we shod our horses ourselves. We would nail on shoes and correct their feet. If they got stone bruise or something, we would work on their feet and doctor the feet sometimes with turpentine or some of the other home remedies that we used. And of course, we didn't call a vet a lot of times. There was a vet that we would call when I was growing up, and we would call him, and he would either tell us what to do, or sometimes he'd come out and give us something to doctor an animal with. But you didn't call the vet unless it looked like the animal was going to die. They would try to save an animal, and they'd say, well, that vet wasn't much good. I called him and he didn't save it, you know. But they'd wait till they're nearly dead before they called him, you know. Most of the time it was beyond repair before they got there. But home remedies worked pretty good. You didn't have a lot of diseases and things at that time. Diseases got more prevalent as horses got traded further away. And you know, because in the community, the horses were there in that community most of the time. They didn't go out and in, bring diseases in. And but your colic and things like that were just mostly home remedies. We knew what to do for those kind of things.
Well, describe some of those home remedies.
Well, we had what they called heaves. They would burn sulfur and under a horse, hang a cloth over their head and hold a plate of sulfur up and burn a sulfur on them, let them breathe that sulfur in for a breathing disease, we called it. And we had gravel. The foot would get gravel, and we would pull the gravel out, try to open up the hole where the gravel was, and pour turpentine in that hole for that gravel, or put tar on. If a foot was hurt, that we would pull that foot up. If a nail, gave a nail or something in it, and we'd doctor it and then use tar over that to keep dirt and stuff from going up in there where we took the nail out.
I've spent countless hours with Buster and Jessie Norton on their family farm, and each visit has left a lasting impression. There is a quiet reverence in the way they work the land, timeless scenes unfolding as they guide their horses through the rhythm of the seasons, plowing the fields in spring, cultivating rows in the heat of summer, making molasses in the fall, and skidding firewood from the mountainsides come winter. What moves me most are the stories, tales passed down like heirlooms, of a life entwined with horses and mules. These animals weren't just tools, they were constant companions in daily life, shaping childhood memories and still playing a central role today. Over the past 2 years I've spent filming this episode, I was fortunate to witness the birth of 2 colts To see them take their first wobbly steps, legs unsure but full of promise, was a powerful reminder of the continuity and beauty of this way of life. Equally inspiring is the next chapter being written by Buster's daughter Kendra and her husband Ethan Fortner. On a recent visit to their farm, I had the pleasure of sitting down with them to hear about their own bond with working horses. They spoke with pride about using horses to plant and plow, carrying on this tradition not out of nostalgia, but from a deep belief in the value of what's been handed down, and passing this legacy on to the next generation, reins in hand.
I'm Ethan Fortner. I grew up in the Canada section of Jackson County.
I'm Kendra Fortner. I grew up in Madison County in the Grapevine area.
I guess you could say that horses brought me and my wife together. As a matter of fact, the first picture that ever took of us, let me just tell the tale. So I seen her at the estate sale. And I told my sister, I said, I'm gonna marry her. I said, I've got to figure me out a way to see her again. Buster's gonna have a plow day, and it got rained out 3 or 4 times. And that was the year that I started growing sorghum. And so I said, well, I'll go over there to Buster and get me some seed from him. We went over there, I took my sister with me, and they were plowing. And so the first picture ever made of us was us plowing. So
Talk to his sister more than him.
Yeah,
He was afraid to talk.
I didn't say 3 words, and at the end of we plowed for probably 2 hours together. I plowed and she drove. And we got the seed and got in the truck, and Katie said, well, did you get her number? I said, no, I hardly even said hey to her. But here we are today, 7 years later.
Well, Kent, I know you rode horses and did competitions and things like that. Tell me kind of your background with horses.
So growing up, Dad, Buster, always plowed and did all kinds of stuff with the draft horses, and he would break horses for people too. And so I started riding when I was just a little bitty, younger than my daughter is now actually. I would ride, and Mom and Dad and whoever else would ride too, and I would get led until I got just a little bit bigger, and then they would let me have my own horse to steer and everything by myself. So I've rode my whole life and helped Dad break horses for people. He would do most of the workhorse kind of stuff, and then I would get on it and break it to ride, and some of them we would do both with.
So I know you've worked horses all your life. Kind of tell me about, there's a lineage there through your family, obviously, of using horses. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, like I said, my great-grandpa, he come up in a time when that's all they had. And if you had a pair of mules or a pair of horses, well, that was about like having a track hoe today or something, you know. So from there, then it come on down to my grandpa working a single horse. And then when I was a boy, probably 3 or 4 year old, I had a feist dog, and his name was Butch, and I'd put a dog lead on either side of his collar and drive him through the yard, you know. So it's just been in me, and I hope, as long as I'm able and God willing, I hope to do it as long as I can. And our daughter, you know, she loves horses. She claims that big workhorse of mine, Jane, and I've got a nephew that loves horses, and hopefully it'll keep passing on that way. But just being exposed to it, and then a love for it, I guess.
On this channel, I hope to continue to honor the people, vibrant culture, and strong traditions of Appalachia. If you share my interest in the people and places I call home, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons to learn more about this way of life. The black and white photographs in our videos are taken from my 3 Appalachian-themed books, which are available online. You can find us at thefaceofappalachia.com and barnwellphoto.com, and on Instagram at Tim Barnwell Photography. Thanks for stopping by. Hope to see you again soon.